What happens when a film's moral folds in on itself, with the film's greater message proving to be ultimately contradictory towards the process that made the film to begin with? This circumstance has been the case for many films across film history, but today I want to dive into how this concept failed the 2008 Disney film Bolt. For a bit of background, or in this case, Bolt ground, I watched Bolt as a child and basically forgot about it. As did most humans, I think, maybe. But I've been rewatching all the 2000s Disney projects because of a greater retrospective I've been working on, and things have been jumping out to me about Bolt. So, spoilers for the 2008 movie Bolt, and let's jump into the film and diving into and unpacking how Bolt fails. Part 1, What Happens? We open on essentially what would be the trailer for Bolt, the TV show, named after the dog in the universe. Bolt is a dog engineered with superpowers whose job it is to protect Penny, the young girl who adopted him. We flow into an episode of the TV show. Penny is trying to track down some villain who supposedly kidnapped her dad. This is done through a chase sequence that's decent. It's depicted that these are all practical effects made to make Bolt feel like a super good boy. The film then transitions into the crew behind the scenes, having all the crew go to the editor's bay, where the director of the film is complaining that there's a boom mic in the shot. Typical film stuff. Wow. Editor, do what you will with that. Because Bolt is a dog, the director has decided to trick him into thinking that the show is his life. There's no second takes. His life begins and ends at the set, and this entire production company agrees to keep him in the dark. Bolt, the show, is canonically struggling in the ratings, focus groups not liking it, and so the network sends an executive down, and instead of focusing on the director's unpractical practice, the show is told that if they can't keep their ratings afloat, it's going to get canceled. We cut to Penny, played by Miley Cyrus, who's spending time with Bolt in his trailer, trying to assure the dog that she's not in danger. Penny alone is the only character in Hollywood who can tell something's wrong about gaslighting Bolt. Penny has the desire to bring Bolt home, but her agent of all people says no. Meanwhile, where is Bolt's handler? It's depicted that Bolt just lives on the set in his trailer alone. His only visitor is the TV show's villain's pet's actor who goes to mess with Bolt, which means that the director, who cares so much about method acting, only forces Bolt to go through the method acting. The cat is fine. That's the chaos of his life. Also, he's played by John Travolta now because why not? On the next episode of Bolt, Bolt and Penny continue to track the villain dude, but then in universe, the villain kidnaps Penny, and out of universe, the crew captures Bolt. Penny tries to reassure Bolt that she's fine, but never gets to reach him, and the show frowns upon it. The cats return to tease Bolt in his trailer, and guess what? Bolt bolts. Before getting knocked out by a glass window and falling into packing peanuts, he's packaged and shipped to New York City. And I'm not gonna talk about the film's road trip shenanigans. I'm sorry. It's just not what I'm interested in. What matters is that Bolt develops and realizes he's not a superpowered dog, but in fact is just a normal dog, and we'll get back to him later. But he meets this cat and this hamster along the way, and they don't stick out to me. I forgot their names. The cat's design is a cat by way of silly, goofy CGI Disney, maybe, I think. But let's talk about Penny again. Penny, the human child, is distraught about Bolt being gone. She refuses to shoot the show, so much to the studio and her agent's frustration. They get a replacement for Bolt, like an actual look-alike dog, and try to trick her and gaslight her because these people suck. And Bolt eventually returns to Hollywood, only to find out that he's been replaced by another dog, and he only sees what they're shooting for the show, and not how frustrated Penny is about how the dog's a replacement. So in frustration, he leaves the film shoot. Replacement Bolt then gets scared by the villain because he's not a dog raised to be on a TV show constantly. It accidentally lights the ground on fire though, because he bumps into a torch, and no one in the studio saves Penny, who's dangling midair. Rest in peace. The stage collapses in on itself, with Bolt going in to save Penny. And while the two get close to an exit, the smoke quickly settles in, and unfortunately it's too late. Penny dies in Bolt's paws. As the pup realizes that everything he's worked all film for has been for naught, he welcomely decides to join his best friend in death's embrace, staying by her side as the first responders weren't fast enough. Nah, they're fine. Bolt barks and the firefighters hear it, rescuing Bolt and Penny and getting them to the hospital. Penny's mom then quits the production for her and Bolt. I didn't know that she had the power to do that for a dog, but hey, good for her finally in this point in her child's life. They recast them both by giving Penny's character a face surgery, and then they move somewhere rural and nice to Bolt and the cat and the hamster who don't matter for the sake of this video. So that is the plot of Bolt as simply as I can say it. I know there's parts in this middle that are missing, but I don't really care. So that's established. Cool. Bolt's a mess. Part 2, Bolt is a mess. I need to make this very clear. When a film is a mess, it doesn't inherently mean it's a bad film. Several films that I like are messy. Disney, just before Bolt, released Meet the Robinsons, a film that I love dearly, gonna be talking about again soon, and Hold is probably my third favorite Disney film of the 2000s decade. But Meet the Robinsons is still a massive mess. I mean, go further along, I think Princess and the Frog, Hunchback, Hercules, and a lot more Disney films wind up as films that I like, but are still messy films. Most commonly, in the birth of a mess, something goes wrong in the middle of production. Like, for example, it's messy to fire your director who created the best Disney film of the decade. Yeah, they did that. Flashback in time to the year 2002. The notable Disney release for the year was Lilo and Stitch, which is the single most prolific film the studio would release this decade. Lilo and Stitch was helmed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois. The people in charge when Michael Eisner was at Disney would present the duo with a multi-film deal, which presents the duo with a lot more creative leeway than they would have normally. But the first film on the deal is American Dog. And American Dog, oh boy, let's talk about this. Reports would grow and say that the film was lacking to executives and screenings, and in 2006 we would see the arrival of Pixar's John Lasseter at Disney. Lasseter would fire Sanders and basically put new directors on the American Dog project, and 18 months later the film would release as Bolt. And yes, this means that Disney had to animate an entirely new film in just 18 months. The Disney animators were on crunch time for Bolt, and also most definitely for Meet the Robinsons. They had to learn to CGI humans, and no wonder that the films feel a little weak in post at points. Beyond this, I don't really want to rag on the animators who were placed in poor conditions to make the best art they could. The fault of a film's production lies in the hand of the executives who wanted to get Bolt out pronto. Instead, I think we should dive into Disney's worst mistake: going with Bolt's story and animating this. Part 3, The Truman Dog. The Truman Show is an actual masterpiece. It came out in 1998 and stars Truman, a man whose entire life has been filmed in the set of a big TV show that everyone's in on except for him. The story is enthralling because it dissects the psychology of a man whose entire life has been set up for him to get gaslit into. Every choice and every person he meets was designed by committee to entertain everyone else around him while he himself lives a falsehood. The film's premise is essentially Truman coming to grips with his own unreality and watching him unravel from the control he's been trapped under his entire life. The concept of an unconsented unreality is always going to be fascinating with how it reflects on what we want. We want our reality to be real and not fake, because if every choice we make it doesn't matter, it begs the bigger question: do we matter? It stands to serve as one of the themes in Bolt. Bolt thinks that his self-titled TV show is his life and in fact real. His bond with Penny, the only truly mutual connection in his life, as even though she knows Bolt's life is fake, she's willing and wanting to break the veil and connect with him as a dog. But the entire rest of the cast and crew at best tease him, and at worst disregard his existence as an actual living being and treat him exclusively as a prop. There's no handler on the film, with the closest person being able to make Bolt's decisions being that agent character. Bolt has to go back after every day of the shoot to his trailer alone. We don't actually ever know how long Bolt the show has been shooting, so maybe it's on like season 1 with a cancellation window approaching, and there's only so much I can say about the Bolt TV show within the Bolt movie's popularity because it's a kids movie. Disney obviously didn't think this part through, and the audience isn't expected to think it through either, but the issue within this film's logic for me permeates through a faulty hypocrisy that the film engages in, which is the take the film has on child stars and entertainment. Part 4. The fault in child stars. Child stars have been a component in Hollywood's engine for many years, but we would really see them start to modernize in the 90s. This leads to the boom in children's television and many more events that have been covered to death by other YouTubers. Yet we're here at this topic with Bolt of all things. The character who carries Bolt's B-plot is Penny, and the way her story plays is simple. Penny wants Bolt to be free of his unreality. Bolt escapes the set because he's been gaslit. Penny refuses to work until they find Bolt. The studio decides to cast a new dog as Bolt and gaslight Penny. Penny sees through it but goes back to work for the sake of the show. And then at the end there's a fire on the set. Bolt saves Penny and they recast her in the show as her mother decides to have her pulled from it. So in Bolt, there's this weird acorn of commentary here about how Hollywood sucks for children. It's dangerous, they aren't respected as people, and they're churned through by the machine where they are extremely replaceable. Penny is as replaceable as Bolt is to the show's success. And even though her replacement is willing, the show gets back to action very quickly after the fire from what is implied. It's a weird piece of commentary when you look at the casting situation for Penny's character. Originally, actress Chloe Grace Moretz had been cast as Penny, but during the film's troubled production, she would get recast as Miley Cyrus, with Moretz being relegated to playing younger Penny and also the Penny recast in the universe. Now, I want you to think to yourself, what's significant about Miley Cyrus being cast for a 2008 Disney film? She's Hannah Montana. Now you got a company replacing outside talent with arguably the most popular Disney star from their TV empire, a star that they have been working with since she was 13. Disney cast one of their child TV stars in a movie that is vocally questioning the safety of child stars. Granted, it's weird to use an outside child star as well, but I think there's a deeper insidiousness to the context of the conditions surrounding it, especially from Disney, who's gone so far to monopolize what they can of the kids' entertainment ecosystem. Overall, I don't think this entire situation on its own would matter much. It just, in my mind, exposes a hypocrisy that sours the film to a level where it brings Bolt beyond the standard apathy I'd have for the film, which might be what most people have to this film because I don't think anyone cares about Bolt. Hey, one more quick section I wanted to bring in. So I said no one cares about Bolt. Actually, one person does. It's David Corenswet, aka Superman. Good for him. I'm happy you really enjoyed the film. It's one of his favorite goofy films and a guilty pleasure of his. Good for Superman. We're proud of him, and I disagree. Part 5, who cares about Bolt? Or just who cares? Because who really cares what this title is? I want to kind of tie Bolt into a look at this era of Disney, because this video was meant to be a prelude to a video on Chicken Little, but it's evolved into a fascination for what's Disney's weirdest era. I think in the 2000s, there's 3 films nowadays that get attention from both Disney, the company, and the public at large. The most obvious one is Lilo and Stitch. Stitch is this like mascot figure for them. It has $1 billion grossing remake. Then there's Princess and the Frog, which, in spite of my issues with the film, has been really canonized to the Disney princesses line, which is great. Tiana's cool. Too bad her film couldn't have been better. Long story for another day. I got mixed feelings on that one. But finally, Emperor's New Groove has rightly developed from a box office flop to one of the certified classics. It represents, to me, the last relic of the Renaissance era and sort of a lost child of that era's style of filmmaking. So that's 3 solid films. But there's 9 more of these that Disney released over the course of the 2000s. I'm gonna kind of lightning round these. Dinosaur is a boring slog of a movie that I just did not like. I was super bored with it. Atlantis and Treasure Planet, meanwhile, are underrated flops, which have developed a cult classic reputation, but it's not, I think, resulted in a full reevaluation from the masses yet. The films have their dedicated fan bases and are often being regarded as these cult classics, but rarely do I see them getting attention from non-Disney fans. Home on the Range is rightfully hated for being a baby movie for babies. Brother Bear is mostly forgotten because, honestly, with Brother Bear, there's some things that are genuinely good there, but it's a boring slog of a film that didn't think things through much at all. And then we get to Fantasia 2000, which went with a whimper the way of Disney's more classic package films. Not exactly the box office gold, because if you told me I'd be paying $10 for 9 short films, I might be sold, but would little Timmy be sold? I don't think Little Timmy sold. This leaves us with a weird era of 3 CGI films that I've got a lot more to say about, and 3 films that I want to focus on a lot for the next few months. Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt. Bolt's reputation is super funny to me because sure, I think a good number of people who grew up on Bolt remember it fondly. It's the Disney dog movie, but for modern audiences. But does anyone really think of Bolt nowadays? When we discuss Disney, I feel like Bolt's a D-tier mention for people in conversation. Never it's a starter and everyone's like, oh, Bolt! But instead it's that movie that exists to the point where I think the only thing really fascinating to me about this film is its hypocritical commentary on child stars and how Disney sabotaged the vision of probably the single greatest animated film director alive today. Chris Sanders is that good. The guy's given us Lilo and Stitch, How to Train Your Dragon, and The Wild Robot. He's provided some of these fantastic stories, and yet his one wasn't good enough for Disney at this time. They canceled his vision as they were struggling for a hit. When the craziest thing about Lilo and Stitch's production, in my opinion, is that Disney was relatively hands-off as the animators worked from the Orlando studio instead of the classical California studio. But for Bolt, it's weird because as bad as Bolt is, I can't really fault the creators who had to make it. The only sword that the film's fault falls on is the sword set up by the corporate shakeups and tightening deadlines. This ultimately caused the film to be like its climax, a building burning with a few people inside it being trapped to potentially die in its fire. Finale, The Ashes of Eisner. Michael Eisner's story at Disney begins with understanding his end. Eisner's a man who is defined by his ambition. An ambition to restore Disney to what it once was, and an ambition to himself to serve as the heir to Walt Disney's legacy. But like ambition in the past, it gives way to overextension. Overextension so often leads to being able to place less effort into everything that surrounds you. And as your effort declines, cracks forge themselves into your armor. So when crisis comes to your door, you falter, you fall, yet you never fade. Bolt is a byproduct of Disney's own fear to be overtaken by Pixar, a failed investment into the animation arms race, a race that only exists to begin with because of false promises. And in discussing its ultimate irrelevance as a film, we open a greater discussion. What happened to Disney in the 2000s? This video has been a while in the works. I've been working on a lot these past few months. The truth of matters is I've been trying to work on a new docu-series or documentary project, and this is the first part. The Bolt video is a starting point, and then also something that's going to change and grow, because I've kind of developed a bit of a fascination on the end of Eisner. Defunctland has a lot of good Eisner content. He's a fascinating man, but if you're wondering why I picked Bolt as the beginning spot, I don't really know. You guys can elaborate and add on things to get expanded in the comments. But again, the biggest thing I can possibly mention is this isn't the end of me covering everything, only the beginning. We're just starting at the end because it makes the beginning all the more fascinating. Next few months or so, we're getting videos on Cats Don't Dance, hopefully for next week. I'm doing one on Emperor's New Groove for some time. I'm doing one on Meet the Robinsons, and I'm doing a big video on Chicken Little for its 20th anniversary. But that's basically my 5 that I've got kind of as this mini project before I figure out what I'm going to be doing next. I'm probably returning to Rankin Bass after that, but I'm excited because I think I've grown a lot as a creative, and I think you guys are always fun to share it with. I'm trying to eventually get this to be full-time. I work as a teacher most of the time, and this is my side thing. I don't make money from it at all, but today we got an editor. My editor Linlin did a fantastic job on everything, and you should totally check her channel out. This is an excuse for Linlin while editing to promote the ever-loving heck out of herself because she's amazing. There's something fun about going through histories and looking at tides, because time's funny. It runs on and runs on and runs on until it doesn't, and everyone's stories are interconnected, and no one's story would be the same if one person wasn't there. So I'm probably going to be going mainly for video essays in the near future and stuff, as well as I'm probably going to do some more of these audios on top of this on my Patreon for you guys to have access to, so people can listen, because I do have a Patreon for some reason. I say for some reason, I know I have it for money. But yeah, that's about it for today. I can't wait to see you soon again for the next video. Bye.